Right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 3 of Oxford University, and welcome to the next session in our Oxford FinTech and Legal Tech Society's Bootcamp 101 series. And today's session will be called The Truths About Law Firms and Technology. And as you can see today, we're joined by a few very distinguished guests today. We have Shruti, A&O partner and head of Fuse, as well as the respective founders of Avoca, StructureFlow, and Define, which are actually very established legal tech startups based in Fuse. Right, so just a quick introduction to our event today. All right, so we're going to start off with an introduction to the event and the society, following which Shruti would be giving an introduction to what Fuse is and what legal tech is about. Following that, we're going to have a short introduction and demonstration by Avoca, StructureFlow, and Define. And then we're going to end up with a panel discussion and a question and answer. Right, so throughout the session, we hope to keep things interactive. If you guys have any questions, just pop them into the chat. And at the end, we'll try to answer every one of them. All right, so just to kick off, right, the Oxford FinTech and Legal Tech Society, if you don't already know, was founded in 2017. We have about 2,000 plus members. We organize seminars and workshops like this, and we also do some publications and research with regards to FinTech and legal tech. And this is our term sheet for this term. For those who don't know, we are currently hosting a Legal Tech 101 bootcamp, which is actually a 6-week bootcamp workshop that's dedicated to sort of teaching everyone a crash course into what legal tech is, and hopefully ending off with a no-code hackathon competition where everyone can actually try your hands at creating your own legal tech product. All right, and today I'm just going to introduce you to our main speaker. Right, today we have with us Shruti. Shruti is the head of Fuse, Lma Automate's tech innovation space, which opened in September 2017. Fuse philosophy is to identify legal tech, reg tech, and deal tech companies relevant to A&O lawyers and their clients, and to find ways to start working together. In the derivatives and structured finance, Shruti is now the first person at Lma Automate to have directly been promoted to partner into its advanced delivery and solutions offering. She's also on A&O's I2 panel and advanced delivery board. Right, now we'll have the pleasure of passing the time on to Shruti, who will be giving an introduction to the event. Shruti,
Thanks.
please.
Thank you very much. And I suppose the first thing that I should say about myself is I am just a normal lawyer, right? Like I did derivatives for years and I was just a normal average Joe lawyer. And the other thing I should say, and Elliot, Tim or Nandi can attest to this, is I'm pretty rubbish at technology. So, I mean, one of you can speak, you know that's true. So affirm, nod, true story, bad at technology. But as a lawyer, what I was genuinely very passionate about my clients, and I really felt like I wanted to do the best for them that I could. And I regularly felt that even though I was doing credit derivatives, which is as kind of bespoke and non-standard as it really gets, I felt that there were lots of things that I could do better using technology. But as just like an average Joe lawyer, I didn't really know where to go or what to see or what good looked like, or if I found a legal tech company that did something that I wanted, how you might go about having something like that used in a firm as big as Allen & Overy. So I felt that we were kind of just stuck as a law firm in doing things the old way all of the time. So I would get an email from the client and it would say, please, Shruti, can you draft this credit derivatives document? And I would look at my files, try and figure out when I had last done it and kind of change the date, change the parties, read it through and figure out what else needed updating. And I would never stop and just think, is this the most effective way of doing it? Is it efficient? Is it nice for the client that all they're going to get from me is a Word document back? Am I using my time wisely? Is there a better way? I just kind of never got to that point. And then sort of separately in my spare time, I invest in small companies. So I had started to see that outside of a law firm and its sort of four walls, which is very introspective traditionally, that there were lots of people like Elliot and Tim and Nandi doing some really cool things, but they weren't really doing it under the construct of a law firm. So they were kind of off they were oftentimes, and in all three cases actually, people who were at law firms who didn't like the way it was being done and left to go and start up their own businesses. But having done that, they weren't, I at that point couldn't really see very much legal tech being brought back under the auspices of a law firm and being run through the documents that a law firm might work with and being looked at by the lawyers that would work on the documents. So whilst each of Elliot, Tim and Namdi knew exactly the pain points that they had suffered and what they didn't like about the way they used to do their job, they didn't know what a partner on the same transaction might like, or a trainee on the same transaction might like, or the derivatives lawyer on the same transaction might like. And so that's really why we set up Fuse, was to find the best in class, which is what we did, for every type of legal tech that we thought might be interesting to our lawyers. So really grateful to Elliot and Tim and Namdi, because they're all going to give you product demos today and show you what they're doing. And you'll see there's quite a lot of breadth in the different types of things that are available to lawyers to use. But the idea was that for every kind of category, we would find the best company that we possibly could, and one that we could work with, and one that we could hopefully contribute to. So one where we could say, okay, we really like what you've done in the product here, but we need, I don't know, we need the button to be here, or we need this additional functionality, or we need it to also be able to do that. And Elliot maybe will tell the story of when they first started with us, and I spent about 6 months telling them about one particular feature that I really wanted Avoca to have. I think that sense of getting permanent product feedback from users is really, really helpful to a product and makes it better. But on the sort of converse of that for us as lawyers, Al and Overy, is if you've taken the time to try a product, look at it, feedback, and then you see that the things that you have asked for actually make their way into the product, you are so much more likely to use it. So even someone like me, who regularly used to get kind of emails, the way it works in a law firm, just so you know when you arrive, is every few months you'll get an email from someone in IT that says, we've just bought this piece of software. It does this very helpful thing. Would you like to come and have a sandwich lunch and we can teach you about it? And you think, no, I don't want to have a cold soggy sandwich and I don't care and this doesn't make any sense to me and I'm not interested. And then you press no and that's it. You never really see anything new. And the difference here is that our lawyers, I feel, and these guys can all say whether or not this is sort of reflective of their own experience, and I don't mind if you say it's not, but I think our lawyers just feel a bit more bought into the process because they have contributed. They have said, this is what I'd like to see. They have said, actually, I need it to do this for it to work for me. And so when it does do those things, they feel so much more likely to use it. The second thing I think that Fuse does really well for us lawyers is when you actually go into practice, you will learn the lawyers are very territorial over their documents. So when you go into the big wide world and you start to draft documents, you will not want anyone else to touch your document. You will not trust it to anyone. You don't want anyone to add an and, or a full stop, a comma, anything without you knowing that that's gone in. And to allow a piece of technology to access your document is a massive leap of trust and of faith. And I think one of the really nice things about having Fuse is that our lawyers meet Namdi, Tim and Elliot, in person or virtually, and get to ask the questions and satisfy themselves that structure flow or Avoca or Defiant is not going to ruin their documents and that they can trust these companies and that it's going to work for them. So that's kind of what we've been doing. That's why we started Fuse. We've been running for almost 3.5 years now, and we're currently open for our applications for our 5th cohort. I actually did a talk this morning to our business services group, and that includes in it the head of our real estate, who, when we first set up Fuse, came and traipsed around London with me to look at potential sites. And I remember I had a whole day schedule where I took him to various different startup places and WeWorks and Google Campus all around Old Street. And I was trying to convince him that this was a really great idea. And I said to him, honestly, Edward, did you even for a minute think that we would be here 3.5 years down the line? Because I certainly didn't. I really didn't believe in it. I knew it would be good, but I didn't realize it would kind of speak to our lawyers as much as it has done. And I think that's really sort of testament to the Fuse cohort members that we've chosen and we've had in, that our lawyers really have changed the way that they work, and they really are embracing new technologies and trying to do things differently and being more ambitious for their clients. So that is what we do. That's how we've done it. The final thing I'm just going to talk about very quickly is some of the trends that we've been seeing, because as I said, our application process is open at the moment. So we've got new applications coming in, and it's interesting to see kind of the sort of the themes, I suppose, of what has happened so far. When you hear the demos from Elliot and Tim and Namdi, you will see that there are quite a few different legal tech companies doing slightly different things. So each of them will occupy a certain space. The thing that's been interesting in the last year is to see how lots of law firms have come to the realization that we need to start to figure out how to join it all together a bit better. So rather than kind of having a lawyer and expecting them, when they want to create a document, to have to log into their Avoca account, and then when they want to review a document, to have to remember their defined password, and then when they want to include a diagram in their document, to have to separately log into Structured and remember how to use that. We need to try and figure out how to bring it all under one umbrella for the lawyer and just make it really easy to access, really easy to understand, really easy to use, and all that goes with it. So for example, with training, we currently at Lma Automate might have Avoca training separately and structured flow training separately and defined training separately, all given by different people with a slightly different set of depth, a slightly different set of slides. And I think, what we actually need to do is make it easy for people to access all three and maybe do the training together and maybe explain to people how you might interact with all three in an easy to understand way. So I'm definitely seeing a move away from point solutions that maybe just do one thing in one particular area, and a move towards a sort of a larger coverage. So some solutions are trying to do quite a lot more and cover quite a lot more ground. And perhaps that's made possible by the fact that there's been quite a lot of investment in legal tech in recent years as compared to previously. So possibly, as investment continues, people just, their ambitions can grow larger and people can do more. But that's kind of a summary of what we've been doing and how we've been doing it. And I suppose the final thing I'm going to say is, we at A&O for years and years and years and years and years talked about being better, right, and creating efficiencies in how we worked and using technology and doing things better. But I thought that was kind of impossible. It was an impossible ask unless you showed people what better actually looked like. So what we do for our lawyers is we will give them 5-minute product demos from the companies that we have with Infuse, so they can actually see, oh, I'd have to click this button, oh, I'd have to do this, and I'd have to do that. And so we're going to try and replicate that same experience for you today to really try and bring to life what each of these three companies are doing and how they might be used when you are working on a document as a junior lawyer. So we are going to start with Avoca. I'd just like to note, just so that Namdi knows, we are not doing this in alphabetical order. But I'm going to start off with Elliot, who is the co-founder of Avoca, and he is going to kick off and tell us about what they do. Thank you so much, Elliot.
Absolutely. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. I'll go into presentation mode. Thank you for having us today. As Shruti mentioned, I'm Elliot. I'm one of the co-founders of Avoca, which is described as an end-to-end contract automation tool. Prior to this, I was a corporate M&A solicitor at Slaughter & May, and I actually met my co-founder on an Allen & Overy VAC scheme. So we've kind of come full circle in terms of arriving back at Fuse and Allen & Overy. A bit on our journey, I guess the main focus of our product is to try and give lawyers and other users that deal with contracts a toolkit that enables them to generate documents as fast as possible, as accurately as possible, and allow them to extract as much data from them as possible. We, as a company, have been on quite a journey, and as Shruti was alluding to, that kind of product input from Allen & Overy lawyers has allowed us to sort of start back in 2017 when we first started our Fuse journey, from automating relatively simple standard form documents that in-house teams were generating on a regular basis, all the way up to, and that final bullet point there is awarding the Lma Automate mandate. So the Loan Market Association is the industry body that essentially that drafts precedents for the finance community, so loan documents primarily. And we were lucky enough, together with A&O, to be awarded that mandate to produce that platform. So Avoca will be powering the generation of those finance documents for years to come. And I guess that kind of sums up how A&O have taken us on a journey, and it's the feedback and comments like Shruti alluded to well, wouldn't it be great to have this feature? And that's how we've come forward. So Fuse has been quite a transformative experience for us.
Elliot, can we just admit at this point that my transformative feature was a really good idea?
Absolutely, yeah. Although it doesn't impact automation, well, it sort of impacts automation. I'll explain it. I'll explain in a moment. So what does Avoca do? So it's split up into a series of modules. Document automation is number one. I guess that's the core focus of this presentation. But it's essentially allowing a document to be assembled as a result of an interview process. So normally that's a questionnaire. So the document is tailored as a result of a user inputting answers into a questionnaire that's displayed on screen. It doesn't have to be a questionnaire. You might be pulling or assembling a document from another data source, and that's where we start to think about APIs and that sort of thing in terms of connectivity with other applications. Automation's been around for a long time, and I'll kind of allude to how it's changed and what's changing in this type of platform. But hopefully we give our users a flexible toolkit that allow them to automate documents as fast as possible. Modules 2 and 3, so this is a bit more relevant to where Shruti's feature comes in. You've got two options when you generate a document on the system. You can either generate that first draft of your contract, and you can extract it into Microsoft Word and then leave the platform. For those that are a bit more brave, we have a Google Docs style editor. It's a proprietary editor that we've developed over the last 3.5 to 4 years that allows you to conduct an adversarial negotiation on the platform with your colleagues assisting, but also to actually issue, and that's that third module there, to externally negotiate that document via the platform. And that's something that we're seeing much more use out of. And again, that's been very helpfully inputted with A&O's assistance. E-signature, I'll gloss over just in the interest of time, but analytics, the main benefit of importing a document into a system like ours is that we allow you to structure data in that document in a far more searchable, referenceable manner. So we're able to pull out all the commercial values that go into the assembly of that document, but we can also do softer things like track how a clause is being negotiated during the course of a negotiation. How are we different? So as I alluded to, there's a lot of automation products out there. We are hopefully intuitive enough that you can self-automate. And I've got a slide on that next. We cover the entire end-to-end process. So we're concerned with taking a draft of a document from first draft all the way through through negotiation to execution. And like I said, we try and make sure that data is as easy to extract from the application as possible. Just a kind of spotlight on automation. So on the left, you're seeing the new version of Avoca, and that's the one that's gone live and has launched the Lma Automate Initiative. We use a plain English no-code approach, and that means that you can take a Word document, import it, and without any requirement to know any markup language, which tends to be how our legacy tools automate, you're able to construct logic sequences, input fields to allow you to start automating a document. And the end product of that automation is to try and produce a questionnaire that allows you to assemble the document on the fly as a result of the user answering that interview. Why would you want to automate more? Well, the main aim of Avoca is to try and give you access to more documents that you are able to automate. So because there's no requirement to code, the availability of documents that you can automate, because that entry threshold is much lower, so an ordinary user can get to grips with it, it means that you can automate a lot more documents. And we're trying to drive more automation, more efficiency through use of the application within our user base. I've got a little demo video. Because it's slightly long and I'm conscious of everyone's time, I'm just going to speak over it. It just kind of glosses through what it looks like to automate in the system. So the system looks and feels, certainly the new one, looks and feels like Google Docs. It will feel quite familiar for users that are used to that platform. In this case, it's showing you how you can build input fields. In this case, we're automating an employment contract. It's showing you how you can construct inputs like the employee name. Those green boxes are where what we call conditions, so the ability to construct logic sequences around clauses, and it's showing you how you build those logic sequences in the builder. Once you've automated the document, you're able to start the document, answer a questionnaire. It will then tailor that document on the right-hand side. So it will start to show the document generating and track changes. And as you answer that questionnaire, the document will be building. Once it has built, you're looking at the new document negotiation editor, and you can extract that document from the system, download it out to Microsoft Word, or as this slide's alluding to, is you're able to negotiate live on platform, and you can do things like assign tasks to different colleagues, and generally interact with the document on the application. I'm conscious of everyone's time, I don't want to take up too much. So I've got a final slide on how we've worked with A&O over the last couple of years. Mass automation, that's the idea of getting automation into the hands of ordinary users, so that no code requirement means that more solicitors are able to automate. Client services that's the ability to deliver an automated product offering with a law firm, so then providing the legal expertise, in this case for Warner Media's commercial contracts, and that's the ability to then deliver that automated product back to Warner Media, but with A&O tailored advice. Lma Automate I've alluded to, and the leveraging data final aspect is the ability to just pull information from another source, in this case, a trademark database, so that you can mass generate assignment agreements in this case. So that's how we've worked with it. And that's everything from me.
Thanks, Elliot. And I'll do for you a shameless plug for the event that's going to be run, where people kind of have a hands-on workshop, and just say, we did a similar thing for one of our banking groups at A&O for our sort of more junior lawyers. And it is one of those things that makes you immediately a more useful resource, is if you can say to the partner in the group, actually, I can create an efficiency by doing it this way. And by the way, it's not only going to be more efficient, it's also more likely to be accurate. So after that event that you guys ran for us in one of our banking groups, one of our associates has spotted an opportunity to automate somewhere between, I think it's 60 and 80 documents that would largely be the same, that would just refer to slightly different underlyings. And I can only imagine that the partner that he works for will be very grateful that it will take a fraction of the time, and is much more likely to be accurate than if he had done it a manual way. So I really recommend that if anyone has an interest, that you attend that workshop. Thanks, Elliot, for that. I'm now going to hand over to Tim to talk about structure flow. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks very much, Shruti. Great. So, hi there, everyone. I'm Tim Follett. I am the CEO and the founder of Structure Flow. 3 years ago, I was a corporate lawyer working in London on M&A and investment deals. And I've always been a visual person and found it really useful to create diagrams of legal structures and transactions to try to understand them and to explain them to colleagues and to clients. But I kept coming up against a number of really excruciating problems. Firstly, just creating the diagrams currently is hugely painful. It's typically done in PowerPoint, moving shapes and lines around, trying to get a diagram to look good. A huge amount of time is wasted. Secondly, problems around collaboration. Diagrams are used to try and explain things to people, and they are used in due diligence reports, steps papers, etc. But creating them in PowerPoint and then circulating the PowerPoint files by email creates lots of different versions. And actually, quite often, people aren't sure if they're looking at the most up-to-date, accurate version of a diagram. So there's a real risk that actually people aren't on the same page. And thirdly, there are problems with data and the ability to easily visualize that data. What you can see on the screen at the moment are a couple of diagrams I created when I was in practice in PowerPoint. And to create them, what I had to do was to read through a lot of complex underlying documentation, contracts, and work out what are the entities, the assets, the funding flows. And then I started to draw. And thinking about that, I realized that actually that process was a process of data visualization, but it was being done by a human being, me, manually, which took a huge amount of time. The information is there, it must be possible to visualize it. So I thought to myself, surely there has to be a better way here of doing things. And so I left practice about 3 years ago to set up StructureFlow. It's an overused saying, but the picture really does speak 1,000 words, even in the legal space. Why is that the case? Well, imagine if I was to try and explain to you with words alone what you can see on the screen right now. We'd be here a lot longer than 5 minutes. When you look at a picture, all that information hits you at once. You don't need to build up a mental image word by word because it's already there. And that's why we think visualization is hugely powerful and valuable to the practice of law. Because fundamentally, when you're working with legal structures and deals, they are about relationships between things. And like this picture, it can be so much easier to see that information than to read it. StructureFlow has 3 main areas of functionality. The first is rapid diagramming. Users can drag and drop predefined objects onto a canvas and then start linking them together. So different companies, assets, contracts. And in this sense, it's less like drawing, it's more like modeling. It's a kind of Lego for lawyers. And that means you can build up a complex diagram very quickly. We've sped up what you can see on the screen right now, but in real time, this diagram took just under 5 minutes to create. Secondly, collaboration. StructureFlow is a secure cloud-based product, and that means you can create a project and share it not only internally with colleagues, but also externally with anyone. You can share it with anyone. They don't need to have a StructureFlow account. It could be the client of a law firm. It could be a regulator or a tax authority. You can send a link to someone, invite them to go into the project, and they can see the same thing. They can leave comments. And if you update the diagram, the updates will be fed through to the people that you've shared it with. And what we're trying to do here is bring everyone together to look at the same thing. Still possible to print and export, etc. But what we have here is an opportunity to create a platform for all the different collaborators to come together. And thirdly, information. StructureFlow is fundamentally a visual database. It doesn't just create 2-dimensional diagrams. There's a third dimension, which is data. The system knows what the different things and relationships are in the projects, and it builds up a data model that sits behind the diagram. That means you can do interesting things. You can toggle on and off things that you want to see, particular entities or assets or funding flows. There's a data panel where you can store key information, and you can store links to documents. So you can use a diagram as an information map, navigating your way to different documents. And we're very close now to being able to create diagrams automatically from data. That could be data pulled from Companies House or other sources. The result is increased productivity, improved analysis, and risk reduction. But this is all just the beginning for us. We're not just trying to create a jazzy PowerPoint for lawyers here. We've actually got really big plans. We think that we can help people to explain and understand complex information through visual storytelling. We think that diagrams are widely underused in the practice of law at the moment, just because of how painful it is to create them, and we want to change that. Secondly, we want to bring all the different stakeholders on transactions together so that they can plan, implement, and record transactions across their life cycle with reference to the same information, and have a visual picture of how a structure or deal evolves. And thirdly, we want to unlock the power of the data that sits behind the diagram. We want to allow users to be able to surface that information really easily, and at the touch of a button, make it visual. The opportunities are endless. It's been a pleasure to present. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks so much. And I was just saying to you as everyone was dialing in that we've been using it now internally, and I've had just really nice, like, unsolicited emails from the lawyers who have used it saying it's really made it much easier to do what it is they've done. And actually, as you've been talking, I've just had an email from a PA saying, my fee earner has asked if I could have a license because they'd like me to use this next week. So thanks very much, because you really having a really big impact on the firm and the way we're working. On which, talking of big impacts, I'm going to hand over now to Namdi to talk to us about Define. So Namdi, if I could ask you to give everyone an overview of what you do, that'd be great. Thank you. Namdi, you're on mute. Namdi's on mute to see if I can still do his presentation for him.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
I was going to claim that I was a tech founder, but clearly you can tell by that I'm not very competent with technology. But apologies, hopefully everyone can hear me now. My name is Namdi Amarifanu, and I am the founder and CEO of Define. And I'll give a demo of what Define does. But just in terms of my background, so I used to be a lawyer, just like Elliot and Tim. I was one of these lawyers who really thought that there was a better way of doing things. Legal technology is still very much in its infancy, and certainly when I was practicing as a lawyer, there was definitely a lot of things which I thought could be done more efficiently, with technology. So I left, my career as a lawyer and set about trying to, find a solution for a very specific problem. And what that problem is was, being able to essentially interact with legal documents. So what we're doing with Define is essentially we're trying to position ourselves as the Grammarly for legal, and that is basically what we want to do is make legal documents accessible and simple for everybody. What does that mean? The bigger picture is that, vision is that, as you interact with a legal document, you shouldn't have to sort of navigate through various places just to find information which should be in your fingertips. And that's what Define essentially tries to do. So, very quick example in front of you, this is a particular provision in a legal document. Anyone who's ever reviewed a legal document, be it a housing, a tenancy agreement or an employment contract, one of the things you'll know is that legal documents are absolutely littered with terms and references, defined terms and references. And it's actually quite difficult to understand a provision in a legal document without necessarily understanding those terms and references. So Define removes the pain point of having to do various inefficient methodologies just to access that information. That problem is something that's actually acute for everybody, but even more so for my co-founder. So one of the reasons I started this business was to try and create a better way of doing things for my co-founder who's visually impaired. And it just so happened that when we came up with a sort of prototype solution, we quickly and instinctively realized that this would be something that would be useful to everybody. So that's sort of the basis of how Define sort of came about. I'll give a very quick demo of how Define works, very quick 2-minute demo. So all you do when you see a legal document, you have this sort of button here on the ribbon. And as soon as I open my legal document in my Word document, my legal document on Word, all I do is hit that button. And what Define will do is just scan the document to pick up all the terms and references contained in that document. So now, you can see in front of me all these green highlights. So what these highlights represent are all the terms and references in my document. So, traditionally, if I wanted to sort of look up the meaning of a term or read a reference, I'd have to navigate through the document or, get a hard copy printout and flick through the pages. With Define, you no longer have to do that. All you simply do is just click on whatever highlight you see. And you can now, as you can see on the right-hand side of the panel there, you can just access the information very, very quickly. Not only can you access the information, you can also interact with the information. So if I wanted to edit that information, I can do it, live and direct in front of me, utilizing a split screen, functionality. The other thing it allows you to do is, one of the things that legal documents, you do with the legal documents is that you sort of define terms. And again, traditionally, definitions are usually contained in one part of the document. So what you can actually use Define to do is insert a definition in any part of the document from where you are without having to go to the definition section. So this is just emulating that process here. We also integrate sort of across multiple documents. So, oftentimes when you're reviewing a legal document, you're not just working with the one document. you're working with several documents simultaneously. So what Define actually allows you to do is interact with more than one document. You can link a different document and it will pull up all the references and terms in that second document, as you can see here. So margin is actually contained in a second document, not the one that you're actually seeing. And if I wanted to edit the definition of margin, again, I can just do that by just clicking on the go-to. That will navigate me to the second document, which is what's in front of you. I can make whatever edit I want. And one of the things we also do is interact with track changes. Again, it was very important for us that the user visualizes the information exactly as it appears in their document. I'm proud to say that I believe we're the only company that interacts with track changes and allows that functionality within Word. So if I go back to the first document, you'll see the change I made there is now updated on the right-hand side, and you can see the track changes view as well. And then finally, what we also have is to assist with what you call proofreading. So oftentimes when you've sort of interacted with your document, you just want to clean it up or access information really easily. So we have 2 reports which allow you to do that. So our definitions report, just allows you to access all defined terms, undefined terms, and unused terms in your document. And you can sort of do various things, with that information once you've accessed it. So here, for example, I've got an unused definition. It's not used anywhere in my document, so I just want to delete it. I can actually just delete it directly from this report without having to sort of find that information. And then the second report we have is a reference report. It's quite similar to the definitions report. It's an interactive table of content. It just allows me to pull up any information on the fly, really simply. And not only can I pull up that information, I can also interact with that information, again, all from sort of where I am without having to ever leave the context of my review. So that's a very quick overview of Define. Just one thing to note in terms of our involvement with Fuse. The first thing I'll say is that when we started at Fuse, we were a very young company. We were pre-revenue. We didn't actually have a product. This wasn't, what you're seeing in front of you wasn't built. I remember during our interview with Fuse, we actually showed various screenshots because we were still in the process of developing. So I think one of the things that Fuse are really good with, and I think that's been alluded to already, is that giving you just that input. They've really helped us and helped us progress the product, and it's come a long way. And I'm just so glad that they're not trying to sort of ask for any IP rights for all their hard work. And then the second thing I'll say specifically about Shruti, she tries to give us this hard edge and is always sort of teasing me, and I let that fly because she's actually been one of our biggest cheerleaders. Without Shruti, Define certainly would not have we would not be where we are. And actually, just to give you a very good example of that. So, last year we did a show and tell where we did a demo, which I've just showed you, with one of Alan Overy's financial institution clients. And actually, Shruti was pivotal in sort of helping us promote the software to that client. We ended up doing a pilot with the client, and now we're in the process of finalizing commercial terms, and they're going to be licensed and defined. So that would not have come about without sort of Shruti and A&O's assistance. So, for me, I really enjoyed being part of Fuse. I think it's really helped us and benefited us as a company. Thank you very much for your time, guys, and look forward to the Q&A.
I feel like I'm in a weird dream, Namdi. That's the nicest you've ever been about me, ever. And I'm so genuinely glad that this call is being recorded, because I'm going to play it back to you on a regular basis. Don't worry, the first day back in Fuse proper, that's what's going to be playing on the screen, is this on loop. So thank you. This has made my month.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, guys, for 3 really amazing presentations. I think everyone, whether you're aspiring solicitor or not, can see the value addition, value proposition in each of your products, right? I think so. Moving back more generally, right? Moving into our panel discussion, Shruti, since Fuse was started in 2017, it's gone through about 4 cohorts now, right? How has legal tech changed the playbook for city law firms, right? And this question I posed to Shruti as well as the 3 founders.
I mean, I'll just give a general answer, which pertains really only to A&O, which is I think we've become more ambitious and more open as to how we're going to work. So interestingly, when the pandemic hit, one of the first things that happened was our print room was just completely overloaded, because everybody was trying to print off really long documents to the point that it actually reached our managing partner. he had some email saying, I need this document printed to review it for a client, and print room tell me they can't do it. And what kind of law firm are you running exactly that I can't get my document printed, which means I can't review it? And something like Define completely changes the way we work. And I think up until we've all been made to work from home, we had like a number of safety nets. So I could ask my PA to do certain things for me that allowed me to be inefficient because it wasn't really my problem. Or I could send something to print room, which again allowed me to be inefficient because it wasn't really my problem. And now that all of those things are much harder and that kind of support network has gone away, we are in a position where we are able to be more ambitious. And because we have the cohort companies that we do, we actually kind of almost have the ability to be more ambitious. So it's not just that we think, oh gosh, we should be doing this better. We actually also have a forum to do the things better, and we have places to go and people to talk to. So for me, it's actually less about how we're doing things, but more about a cultural shift from every single time you want to do a piece of work, picking up the last time you did it and doing it in exactly the same way, to having the thought about whether this piece of work could benefit from a different piece of treatment. I'll open maybe up to Elliot and Tim and Namdi to say if they've been with us for a while now, all of them, so they could probably tell you themselves whether they've noticed any tangible differences.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I'm happy to step in, and I mean, something that we get asked quite a lot. I think since starting in 2016, sort of late 2015, legal tech as a concept didn't really exist. It wasn't when David and I first kind of left our respective firms and turned up to the first meetup event. Legal tech as a concept was pretty much a niche offering. And there were very few tech vendors that actually specialized in products for lawyers. I was asked recently, what things have changed that, and one of the things genuinely is the appetite of lawyers to get involved, and that is through experimentation with forums like Fuse. And then it's no surprise that with these avenues to kind of explore new ways of working, so new ways of automating, of drafting, of producing, programmatic diagrams. It's no surprise that kind of the legal tech industry has kind of built out as lawyers have got more curious. I think they've been forced to be more curious as well because of the pandemic. 2019 was the first time ever, I think, in that more than $1 billion was invested into legal tech startups. So I think the ambition of startups matches now the curiosity of lawyers to do things differently. And I think we've ended up with a much more mature market than it was 3-4 years ago.
And if I could add, I think one thing everybody knows, law firms are traditionally quite slow moving. They by nature, lawyers are risk averse, and we tend to take our time and be cautious before we do things. And I think that as Elliot has alluded to, legal tech is such a new phenomenon that maybe a few years ago you had sort of really innovative minded law firms were the ones who were really being embracive of new technologies. But I think as time has come on, one of the things about law firms you probably realize when you start your careers is that they tend to move in a herd-like mentality. So you'll have your one or two sort of innovators who are prepared to take a risk and really try new things. And then once they sort of tick that box and sort of told the broader market this actually works, you then see other law firms now starting to follow suit. I think that you're starting to see that now. You're seeing sort of the law firms who traditionally were not ready to sort of be the ones to get their hands involved in sort of this new shiny legal tech. They're now being a lot more open-minded as they get validation from the wider market on the one hand, and then the second thing as well. Law firm clients are very demanding. They don't want to be paying the sort of fees that traditionally lawyers have been charging. There's much more pressure on sort of costs coming from their clients. So, as a client, if you're aware that there are technologies that can help your law firms, do things more efficiently, which can ultimately not just sort of save costs for the client, but also create a better user experience for the client. I think that they're also putting that sort of demand, on their law firm. So as a result of that, I think you're also going to see that pressure coming on that side as well.
I'd just add one other thing. It's interesting that the question there on the screen refers to city law firms. I think there is something about the City of London and the firms that are headquartered, have a heavy presence in London. There has been this this kind of movement, as Elliot was talking about, where legal tech has become quite a significant thing over the last few years, and with a heavy focus around London and city law firms. And I think it's part of the fact that the UK has always had a very significant role in the kind of global legal services market, and is very much leading the way in terms of the evolution of the profession and the industry, and the embrace of technologies, to achieve that.
Yeah, I think that sounds really exciting. And I think, over the past few years, it's really great to see how the industry has matured. And I think something interesting that we noticed across the presentations by the startup is that it's no longer just about, how we can make a difference to the industry, but also how we can be different from other products in the market, right? I think in the past few years, you see a whole wave of legal tech products coming up. So perhaps the next question would then be, moving on into the future, what do you think are some of the key themes and key opportunities, as well as challenges that face the use of legal tech within law firms?
I'm going to steal Shruti's answer, which you gave. I do think, as the market sort of matures, I completely agree with you, Shruti. I think you're going to see more, complete solutions, and more sort of coordinated solutions. Because right now, what you have probably a saturation of legal tech products. There are a lot of companies out there, and actually probably makes the job Shruti does a little bit more challenging, because every year you have you have sort of applicants apply, and what you're probably getting is more and more applicants, because there are more and more more and more interest in the sector. And I think largely historically, it's been very much sort of point solutions like your Defines and others. And I think what I'm trying to do with Define is to make it much more integrated. There's absolutely no reason why a Define cannot plug into an Avoca or a Structure Flow in due course, and rather than the lawyer having to sort of learn 3 different sort of technologies and 3 different methods of that's just brain mass they don't want to be using. If I'm honest, they can actually just have that in one sort of place for them. So I think you are probably going to move towards that as the market matures. Sorry, Shruti, for stealing your answer.
No, that's perfect. And the only thing I was just going to say by way of challenges is that I think, and hopefully you would all agree, these products will only get better as lawyers continue to use them and feedback. But it does also mean that lawyers need to be prepared to take a product which is not 100% polished and complete and perfect. And it might not do all the exact formatting, for example, that an Allen Overy lawyer is used to. Or with Define, it might pick up the name of a country and think that's a definition, because maybe no one had thought of it, and they just need to receive the feedback. So I think one of the biggest challenges really for law firms, and something that we are always getting better at, but trying to encourage our lawyers to understand, is part of our job is to provide valuable feedback and to have patience with the products. Because as far as I'm concerned, we're currently at a point where we can either take something like Avoca or Structure Flow and Define and kind of recognize that they haven't been around for 20 years and they're not, necessarily the complete 100% package. So maybe they might not have 24-hour customer support, or they might not have all the things that a very incumbent old school large provider might have at the point in time when we start using them. But as far as possible, if we try and work around those things and try and work together to kind of solve and fill in the gaps, then we have a real opportunity to have a product that comes out the other end that we love and adore and that works perfectly for us. And that is so much better than having a product which might have 24-hour customer support, but which is 20 years old and is completely rubbish and none of us like and none of us use. So for me, I think actually one of the biggest challenges is really making sure that lawyers understand that we need to take that leap of faith and we have to try. And I think we've always been very lucky. You've just sort of heard from 3 companies, and I'm sure as budding lawyers, you could all tell and see that this would really change the way that you work. And we've made some really, really incredibly good picks, and we've been really lucky. We have also made some picks where our lawyers have looked at it and said, oh, I don't like this, or it doesn't make sense to me, or I can't, this says it's a no-code platform, it's not, or this says it's easy to automate and it's not, or this is, I don't know, whatever the complaint might be. And so I think we all need to understand, and I think it's really important for everyone on this call to understand, that part of your job as a lawyer of the future is not just doing the job of picking up the last transaction and doing it in the exact same way as you did it last time. Part of your job is to sort of challenge the assumption and say, is there a better way? And then if you identify a better way, being prepared to take the risk that it may or may not pay off, and that it might be a better way, but it might not do all the things that you exactly expect. And that is quite a scary thing for a lawyer to do, but it is the only way that we will progress.
All right. Okay. I think in the interest of time, Elliot and Tim, do you guys have anything to add? If not, we'll move on to the last question.
Nothing from me.
Yeah. All right. I think the last question, and I think it's one that a lot of people on this call might be interested in, is honestly, from a student's perspective, what advice would you give to us, right? I think a lot of people on this call are one of 2 types. One, Shruti, as you've mentioned, is students who are willing to take that leap of faith, right, into their legal practice, to sort of adopt an interest into legal tech through their legal practice. And then you have other students, who are like the 3 founders over here, really interested in sort of moving into the space themselves. So I think the question is, what advice would you give to them as they move out of their student career?
Elliot, Tim, Namdi, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that this particular topic is particularly relevant for Voca. So, I mean, if I talk about the legal tech space side, one is to make use of the fact that, and this I think is a post-pandemic, it's a result of the pandemic and the changing ways of working, is the fact that lots of legal tech companies are making a huge amount of resource available online for free, with no strings attached. So your ability to get involved and understand and experiment with those tools is certainly never been the case that I've seen before March 2020. So I guess my first advice is take advantage of what's on offer by the legal tech companies. And we do something that's called the Voca Academy, and there's countless other examples of that. As for a career in the city, we seem to be turned ourselves into a bit of an A&O trainee feeder school. We've now got 2 interns that started with the Voca that have ended up getting training contracts at Allen & Overy. So maybe there's a legal tech route into the city as well, but obviously that doesn't necessarily have to be. As with everything, it's about seeking experience. And I think the good point is that I think what's interesting from firms is that they are willing to see experience where their touch point with the firm is potentially outside of it. So via a vendor or another organization that has the touch point with those law firms. So you don't have to just go down the sort of vacation scheme internship route. There are other sources. Yeah, but I think that's probably my 2 cents on
it. Thanks, Elliot. I just to start off with would say that we at StructureFlow do take interns, and we do take people into junior roles as well. And we take people who are moving into training contracts. So just to put that out there, I think if I was to give one piece of advice, regardless of whether you go down the law firm route or a different route, it would be just to keep always challenging assumptions and the status quo. Something that Shruti said a minute ago, I think really resonates with me. When you're a junior lawyer in practice, there's so much pressure on just getting the job done and following instructions and not actually challenging, actually, is this right, or is this the best way to do something? Because I think a lot of lawyers are at a personal level very innovative. People are always looking at like how they can improve, how they can do better next time. And I think the difficulty is kind of breaking out the law firm framework or the organizational framework and actually saying, actually, is this right? Should I be doing something like this or not? Is there a better way? And asking those questions. So that would be my piece of advice.
Yeah, and just quickly for me, just like Structure Flow, and I'm sure with Avaka as well, we at the Fine also do internships. There's actually a lady who's currently an intern with us with the job of getting her on full time. She studied law, got a first-class degree in law, but doesn't want to be a lawyer, is really interested in sort of legal engineering and operations. So she sort of approached us, approached me via LinkedIn, and got she's now doing an internship, and she's very good, and hopefully we can get her on full time. So definitely be proactive, be open-minded as well. You may sort of, because you're a student and legal technology is probably not taught at university, you may think, hey, I have to be a lawyer, but just be open-minded. I think, as you sort of get into your career, there'll be other opportunities available to you, and legal technology may be the one you decide you want to follow rather than actually the traditional lawyer route. And firms like Allen Overy, they have specific training contracts just for for people who want to sort of enter into sort of the legal technology route as opposed to the law lawyer route. And you are seeing more and more firms do things like that. So definitely be open-minded, but also be proactive. There's absolutely no reason. I'm not saying you inundate myself, Elliot, and Tim with messages about internships, but there's loads of legal tech companies out there. If you're curious enough to want to know what it's about, why not reach out to some of them and see if you can do a short internship with them. And I don't know if somebody wants to read out a question on the chat for Shruti, because there's absolutely no way she would have seen that question. I don't even know if she's been active.
Obviously, I love the fact you know me so well, Nancy. Go on, what's the question? I don't know the question.
It says, is A&O considering to create their Fuse centres across their offices in order to encourage all the lawyers of the network to engage with legal tech companies?
Well, I'm glad it was you that asked this question, Andy, because you've been the absolutely highlight of my international expansion. But what we used to do before the pandemic is, and if anyone wants to know, they can contact Nandy directly and they can ask him about his experiences in this field. But what we used to do is we would do week-long pop-ups. So we would liaise with a particular office and we would turn up for a week with the Fuse cohort, and they would very kindly have arranged for us to meet, their best sort of top 10 or top 15 clients. And it was genuinely amazing. I'm very, very grateful actually to A&O and to the international network, because they would really have quite a tight schedule of, the top corporates and the top banks. And we would have meeting after meeting after meeting where we had an opportunity to say, this is our Fuse cohort, this is what they're doing, and this is what we're doing with them. And we would also obviously show our lawyers within the office what everyone was doing so that they could understand and have the exact same Fuse experience. Obviously, now that we've gone virtual, we've done really well, I think, in the international reach space. So I think A&O has something like 33 offices. I'm sure somebody on this chat is going to be able to correct me. But I think we have something like, when I was trying to become a partner, I knew all these figures really like the top back of my hand. But now that I've stopped revising about A&O, my facts are not quite so as up to date. I think we have 33 offices. I think we got across 30 of them in the Fuse cohort this time. So 30 of our international offices would have had a show and tell, so a demo from our various Fuse cohort members, and had an opportunity to say, actually, I love Define, please could I have a license? So for example, Brussels got to see everybody, and I don't know, Namdi, if you realise, but 60 of our Define licenses are currently with the Brussels office, just as a result of the fact that we just did an online show and tell, and they all loved it so much that they just had to they weren't allowed to email me individually because it got too much. They had to compile a list in the Brussels office and send it to me under separate cover, and 60 of those licenses just all went straight to one office. So it has made the whole thing a bit easier. I think when we get back to normal, we'll have to look at whether we continue with the Fuse pop-ups, which I think have got their place, but also how we continue with the virtual environment to make sure that we can get really good coverage. Yeah, so that's it. I think, is that all we have time for?
Yeah, I think that's all we have time for. Shruti, do you think you have time to take any questions that people might have?
I am slightly late for a meeting, so I could take maybe just one, if that's all right.
All right, does anyone have any questions you might want to ask Shruti, as well as the founders? All right, I think Yeah, I think if not, I think in the interest of time, I'm sure if anyone has any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to the guests as well, individually, right? If not, I think that might be all. That might be all we have time for. All right. So in that case, I'm just gonna give a great thank you to Shruti as well as the 3 startup founders. I think we have learned a lot from this session today. I think everyone who's very interested in legal tech would have, would see how promising this space is, especially after today's talk. Right. So I think thank you so much, Shruti. And Namdi,
Pleasure. Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah. I think you guys feel free to leave right now. I'm just gonna quickly run through our next week's session with the audience.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.
Right. Okay. Just in terms of next week, all right. We're actually gonna work with Avoca to have a session specifically on document automation. So we've had a sneak peek of what Avoca does previously. If you're interested in a more hands-on experience to see what the technology actually entails, please join us next week. All right. And thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you again in the Legal Tech 101 bootcamp. All right. Thank you so much and bye-bye.